no one in all of the years of all of the experts and practitioners and that I'd been to had ever said even once to me, you might be mineral deficient.
You are tuned into the Dr. Tyna Show with Dr. Tyna Moore. For more, visit drtyna.com. On this episode of the Dr. Tyna Show, I'm sitting down with Carolyn Allen. Carolyn is a health survivor and mineral enthusiast. She's also the co-founder and CEO of B Minerals. After I tried her minerals recently, I met her on a Zoom call where I picked her brain for an hour, and then I had to get her on the show. Carolyn comes from a background career in corporate and found herself struggling with her own health issues, and she sorted them out on her own. She's since devoted her life educating people about how minerals operate in the body and the benefits of natural humic and fulvic, which are plant-based, complex, natural compounds that contain trace minerals, amino acids, vitamins, and nucleic acids. You may have heard of them. I needed to know all about them and how they worked. We had a fascinating talk, and you're going to want to listen to this one for sure. Let's jump in. Caroline, thank you so much for coming on the Dr. Tyna Show today. I'm very excited to have you. Big fan of your product, and I wanted to bring you on to talk about it because I don't think most people understand the benefits of fulvic and humic, and you've explained it so well to me. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to hang out with you.
Yes. So I, for years, have been seeing fulvic and humic in so many different products out there. And then I came across your product and I had to get some in my hands because my friend Natalie Jill and I both had upper bleph surgery at the same time. And she healed so well and so fast. And we were texting each other the whole week. And I had a terrible time. My immune system went sideways and mine was really swollen and puffy and itchy and just, I did not breeze through it like she did. And I know a lot of that has to do with individual overall health, but I'm just kind of a swelly, itchy girl as is. I'm kind of a high histamine girl. And she was spraying this stuff on her face the whole time. And I was like, what is that? So big fan she is. And she said, you got to get some. So then I connected with your people and I got some sent to me and I loved it. And then you and I had a great talk and I wanted to bring you on the show because I don't think people understand. A lot of people are pounding fulvic and humic and I don't think they know what it is or why. And so I thought we could talk about that today.
That would be exciting. It's, of course, my most exciting topic. I love talking about minerals, and most people, it's like, well, minerals are rocks. How boring. But to me, they're very, very exciting.
Yeah. So how did you get into this? Tell me your story.
Yeah. So what happened to me was it's actually close to 15 years ago. I was in a corporate career in the tech world, and I burned out of that. And I had 2 young kids at the time. I had been single parenting. I was working a 50-hour-a-week job, and I was in very ill health. I had flatlined adrenals, which I'd had for over a year. I had really bad inflammation in my gut, even after being gluten-free for about 7 or 8 years. I could not get over the bloating, the discomfort, the elimination issues. I had really bad inflammation in my mouth with gum recession, bad gingivitis, deep pockets, and bone loss in my teeth. I had recurring sinus infections that came, every six weeks-ish. I could never get rid of it. And then I also could not sleep through the night. I woke up 3 to 4, sometimes more times per night. So I met my friend who is now my business partner, and he had these liquid minerals. And I'm not a big supplement taker in general. I just don't, I hate taking pills. And these were liquid. They tasted like water. And so I took them. I was like, okay, sure, minerals, whatever, And I started taking them, and I didn't notice a huge difference, mainly because even though I had flatlined adrenals, I'd had them for so long. I'm a very driven person, and I would just make myself, I was a disciplined person. But about 2 months in, I went to my dentist, and I had my teeth cleaned, which was usually very painful. She looked, and there was no pain, no bleeding. And then when she looked in my mouth, she was surprised and said, what's changed? The tissues in your mouth are all pink and healthy. and the pH seems to be completely different. What has changed? And I couldn't even really think about it. I mean, I thought for a while, and then I said, I think it might be these minerals. So she was like, well, keep taking them. Then 4 months in, I went to my naturopath appointment where we were doing my regular check of my adrenals. At my last appointment, she had wanted me to take hydrocortisone, which I was not going to do. But that's how grave the situation was. And she looked at the results of the test, and my adrenals were 1/3 of the way up the chart with their natural sawtooth pattern. And she was like, this is fantastic. I mean, we had been trying for over a year to get any kind of activity in my adrenals. They were at times below flatline. So this was a huge change. And she's like, it looks like the hydrocortisone's working. And I said, no, I'm not taking that. She's like, well, what are you doing? I said, I think it might be these minerals I'm taking. So over the space of about 8 or 9 months, all those symptoms that I mentioned, including the dysbiosis and challenges in my gut, the elimination issues, the sleep issues, the sinus issues, the gingivitis, all resolved. And I was like, wow. I mean, I had gone to so many practitioners. I've spent probably over $100,000 on my health over the years trying to get well. I also have autoimmune, and I've also had a really bad mold exposure event in my life. And I also had long COVID, of course, much more recently. But all of these things have affected my system and the gluten intolerance, of course, throughout my life, but then the long COVID more recently. So as a result of this change, I just started researching because I wanted to know how it could be that after trying so many different things, that this little cup of liquid could make such a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, you and I met and talked about this, and I was like, this is such a common story. You actually got the test done and the answers to know what you were dealing with, but I cannot tell you how many patients have walked through my door with that exact picture of just total burnout, just flatlined burnout, like a dream. I've been there myself. Like, I remember getting my lab test back once, my hormonal lab test. My dog had just been, it's a crazy story. My dog escaped. My border collie used to jump the fence. She jumped the fence the week that I was doing finals at 2 different medical programs concurrently. I had my naturopathic medical finals and my chiropractic finals, and I had to take board exams on top of it. And my dog jumps the fence. She ends up in a shelter for 3 days. And then I finally get her home. I finally find her, right? So like 3 days of hell, can't find my dog. Finally find her, get her home. I kid you not, she's in the backyard. She's caked in some kind of nasty goo from wherever she had been staying. She smelled to high heaven. I looked at her and I said, I'm going to go run a bath. Don't you jump. And such a highly intelligent dog. She looked at me out of spite. I closed the slider and I heard the clunk clunk of the fence. And she had jumped the fence, and I blasted her with so much anger mentally. Like, I mentally just was like, oh, and boom, I hear squealing tires slam. I hear my dog scream. And then I run out to watch a guy drive down the road. So it was a hit and run. And I follow this trail of blood to the park. And there's my dog with her back leg all mangled up. And she's like, looks at me like, oh no, I did something, like I'm in trouble. And I picked her up and I was running her back to the house. And right then my husband at the time pulled up. I hopped in his car. We took her to the doggy ER. They had to transport her somewhere else. Anyway, she has to get her leg removed. I come home, I'm covered in like blood and whatever the scum was that was on her from the thing. I open up my email before I get in the shower, and there's my lab results. And I print them out, and I remember looking at them, and everything was 0. Like estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, adrenals, everything was zeroed out. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know what to do with that, And like, I'm a medical student, but I'm pretty wise at this point. I kind of know how to handle these things. And I was like, I don't even know what to do with this. And I remember putting it face down and I was like, I got to come back to this. So when you told me your story, I was like, ooh, I've been there. I feel that. It's like a special kind of I'm dying feeling when your adrenals are that flatlined. So, and then I have been on hydrocortisone on and off for decades. So when you told me that you were able to pull your adrenals out of the hole with these minerals. I had to talk to you. So what is in this magical liquid then? What is it that I'm spraying all over myself and drinking all day long?
So one of the things that happened to me when I started researching is I went down the rabbit hole of looking at the body instead of as parts and pieces that have to be fixed, when the adrenals are out or the hormones are out or the gut is out or the gingivitis or the sinus. It's like we try to look at each symptom as a problem that we need to fix. And what happened was, as I began to research, and I was, unlike you, I did not go to medical school. So I was starting at the beginning. The beauty of it was that because I wasn't coming from a medical lens, I was able to look across many silos of information and kind of the term that is from software is kind of grok the whole thing. And what I saw is, and what galvanized me to bring this information to the world, was that our body is completely made of single cells, completely made of single cells. And these cells all operate together like in this seemingly magical way. I mean, heart cells know their heart cells and eye cells know their eye cells. And not only that, they all work together to allow me to talk and think and move, and as well as hundreds of autonomic processes in the background that are just happening without any conscious thought on my part. So just that alone, the fact that an adult human has between 37 and 150 trillion cells. So that's the first kind of huge aha that I had. And then I started asking, well, what's inside a cell? And that's when I encountered mitochondria. And mitochondria being these powerhouses which generate most of the energy in the body, and they are inside the cells. Now, the thing that blew me away, though, was that most people, even if they've heard of mitochondria, they think, well, there's one cell, there's one mitochondria. But the scale of mitochondria is phenomenal. So on my back of my hand, I might have 1 to 200 mitochondria. In my heart, in a single cell, and in my heart, in a single cell, 5 to 8,000 mitochondria. In my brain, one single cell might have, a neuron might have 2 million mitochondria. So the number of these tiny powerhouses that are working all the time to generate all this energy that makes it possible for me to function is unbelievable. But then the final question that blew it up for me was, well, what fuels mitochondria? And it's two things: minerals and amino acids. The body makes a lot of amino acids. It makes no minerals. They all have to come out from the outside. And that knowledge alone made me go, well, no wonder I must have been so mineral deficient that I was unable to generate enough energy in my body. And my body was operating in like a city in a brownout. And so it had to pick and choose which functions it was going to do. It was going to keep my heart pumping. It was going to keep my lungs going. It was going to keep some level of cognitive function going. It's going to keep my eyes working, the very important things. But it couldn't clear the inflammation. My hair, not so important, on and on, So, and no one was talking about that. No one, in all of the years of all of the experts and practitioners and that I'd been to, had ever said even once to me, you might be mineral deficient.
And I think it's because we think of minerals as in isolation. And so we give minerals in isolation, right? We give a certain form of magnesium for this and a different form of magnesium for that. And we give zinc for this and we give iron for that. And I think that's where we get lost in it, is this idea of trace minerals, which I will tell you, there were a few classmates and a few professors in my program in naturopathic school who were way into trace minerals. And I thought they were nuts. This one guy was like, yeah, you just put a small amount under your tongue and hold it. It wasn't even about volume. It was about the fact that the trace minerals, he loved to do what he called drop dosing. I call it microdosing, but this is where I got my idea for microdosing GLP-1s, by the way, was from this guy, because he taught me about drop dosing and I thought he was insane. He taught me that you could take tiny amounts of Prozac and have a completely different impact on the brain than you would if you took macro amounts. And so he taught me, and that's the way I practice now, which is crazy all these years later. But he was the guy that was all about the super low dose trace minerals. And I was like, how is there even anything in there? And then just the other day I saw there's some PhDs I follow on Instagram, and I love their content. They're like very super sciencey, but they don't always get it. Like they don't get the nuances. And this guy was going on and on about minerals and how there just wasn't something about, he was like dissing trace minerals, saying there just simply wasn't enough there to have any impact on the body, right? So like, let's talk about that, because there's something really magical when you get the symphony of minerals together and you don't like super dose just one in isolation.
So this is the thing I love to talk about this, because this can completely change people's paradigm of thinking about their body. So if you think about the body, let's just look at the gut. I mean, the whole body is an ecosystem. Your body is a natural ecosystem with all these microbiomes. Your mouth is a microbiome. Your gut is a microbiome. If you're a woman, your vagina is a microbiome. Okay, so each one of these microbiomes is an ecosystem unto itself. And our gut, as an example, has all these microflora and fungi and beneficial bacteria and all mycorrhiza, all sorts of different organisms and microflora. So I like to use the metaphor of a forest. So like a forest, when your gut is in balance and healthy and there's enough nutrients coming through and enough water and everything's just happily going, it's like a forest that is lush and there's things that are rotting on the forest floor that are delivering their nutrients back into the roots, and everything has what it needs. There's enough rain, even the air carries nutrients. Now go take a wheelbarrow of magnesium and throw it into the forest anywhere. And what is going to happen to those microorganisms and the plants in that area? They're not going to flourish. And so this is the misunderstanding about minerals, particularly minerals, is that they are ecosystem tools. They do not work alone. They are meant to work in balance. Every single mineral of the 17 to 22, depending on who you talk to, that you need in your body, operate in a particular natural ratio and balance with 1 to 10 other minerals. So yes, you do need a lot of magnesium. But if you start throwing large amounts of magnesium into your gut on a regular basis, what your microbiome says, because it's an ecosystem, it says this is a concentration of magnesium. I need to eliminate a lot of this, which is why women often use it for elimination, because it will help you eliminate, because your body says, I've got too much and I need to get rid of it. The other thing that it does is it says, I need to balance this with phosphorus and calcium, because there's too much of a concentration of magnesium here. I need to balance it with these two other things. And where does it get those? From other places in your body, from your bones. So as an example, some trainers that I work with of elite triathletes, they came to me because they're athletes who have been using large amounts of magnesium and potassium, have developed osteopenia and osteoporosis because they've done it on a daily basis over long periods of time, and it has literally taken the phosphorus and calcium from their bones. So, what I say is scientists knew that mineral deficiency was going to be a problem because they looked at our soils and they said our soils are mineral deficient, our foods are going to be mineral deficient, and we're going to need to be putting minerals back into humans. And so they went into their labs and they did their testing, and they came out with what we call recommended daily allowances. But the problem is that recommended daily allowances have absolutely no reference for you or me or the 6'4" athlete or, the 94-year-old grandmother or the 56-year-old woman in menopause or the perimenopausal woman or the puberty person entering puberty. So you see, every single body has different genetics and epigenetics and lifestyle and eating profile and activity level that require completely different minerals. So the idea that I could try and hack my body by giving it the minerals that I think it needs, it's ludicrous and it doesn't work.
Now that makes total sense. I remember now what this PhD was talking about. They were talking about sea salt and how sea salt was unnecessary because there was not appreciable amounts of mineral. Like, why are you worried about the sea salt having a full mineral profile if there's not appreciable amounts in there? And this is what you're getting to, is that when in the right ratios and optimized ratios, preferably from a more natural source, you get better absorption because they dance together, they absorb together. If you take this, for all the people taking calcium, magnesium supplements, I cannot tell you the amount of patients, almost every patient was taking that Calm product,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I would take all of them off of it because I'm like, your calcium is directly competing with the site, the receptor site for the magnesium. So you're not getting any magnesium in you. And I sell magnesium products from my line. Mm-hmm. I don't take them every day. I try to do kind of a balanced dance with all of this, but sometimes when we I think of it like supersetting. If I superset some high dose minerals, I know what I'm doing, but I think that you're so right on about this. Like, this is it. And then this takes us back to the forest floor, because that's where the fulvic and humic come in, which I never understood. I had all these different products that had been sent to me over the years by companies, and they had fulvic and humic. And I was like, what am I taking? I know of them as potentially binders is how I first understood them. I knew of them potentially as detox help, but I didn't ever understand them as like a multifaceted mineral, trace mineral source.
Yeah, so let's talk about what they are and how they work, because I call them Mother Nature's mineral replenishment and detoxification technology. So they are truly, once I describe how they work, you'll understand they're a technology. And what's beautiful is that Mother Nature, the way things develop in nature, it's like as above, so below. So if your body needs to receive minerals in a particular ratio formula, Mother Nature goes, oh, well, we better create this substance that has that same ratio. So that's what humic and fulvic represent. They first represent all of the minerals that your body needs in the natural ratios that your body utilizes. So lots of magnesium, calcium, potassium, the macro minerals, but also all the ratios of the micronutrients that are also extremely important. So where do they come from, though? So humic and fulvic come from the decomposition of freshwater plants, not sea-based plants, but freshwater plants. And the humic and fulvic that is used in supplement products and health and wellness products all comes from ancient decomposed plants. So imagine 65 million years ago, when the dinosaurs lived, a meteor hit the Yucatan. It killed 75% of all life on Earth in a matter of hours. And all these rainforests around the Earth, as well as dinosaurs and lots of animals, died and decomposed and became a strata of Earth below the surface. There are different substances around the Earth that are humic substances. And I'll explain. I'm not going to say humic and fulvic at this point. Let's just say humic substances. There's something called shilajit in the Himalayas. It's like a pasty,
like
sticky
a tar.
substance. It's like a tar, yeah, and it oozes from rocks. Then we have peat in the British Isles, and it's It comes out of bogs and ancient bog areas, lowland areas. It's this kind of a clumpy soil. Then we have terra preta in the Amazon and the South America, and then we have something called humate and leonardite in North America. And these substances are that we use. It's the humate is a black crystalline, incredibly mineral rich substance, like so mineral rich that in the powder form, the amount that you would need to take in a year is less than a cup.
Wow.
So it's that mineral rich, because you have to imagine an entire rainforest, if you've ever seen one with, 200-foot tall trees and vegetation chock full, all decomposing into this strata of earth, bringing all of their mineral content back into this substance. So beyond providing all the minerals that you need, humic and fulvic have these incredible capacities. So just to be clear, the humic molecule is a pretty large molecule relative to, it's much larger than a cell. And ultimately, the fulvic molecule comes out of the humic molecule.
Okay.
So I say it's kind of like a birthing. It's extracted from the humic. So when I talk about humic, it actually will always have some fulvic associated with the molecule, but humic in particular has specific capacities. It hangs out in your bloodstream or in your gut, and it's an incredibly effective binder. It's a really interesting molecule because on different places on the surface of this molecule have different polarities, so it can attract molecules of multiple different, positive or negative polarity. So, and it's incredibly effective at gathering biowaste, toxins like glyphosate, nanoplastics, spike proteins, even graphene oxide, heavy metals just in general. Now, as well as senescent cells, all sorts of different detritus that your body is ready to get rid of. It's I call it Mother Nature's janitor, because it literally just hangs out in your bloodstream, in your gut, gathering up the stuff that you need to get rid of.
How about lipopolysaccharides from gut bacteria, the endotoxins, that certain pathologic gut bacteria?
Yeah. And, I am not sure about endotoxins. And somebody asked me that recently. So I don't want to make that claim without
I'll look into it.
And I have that on my list to do some research. I'm not sure anybody's done any studies with endotoxins or mycotoxin relief. My gut feeling is that it definitely would support the detox of those, but I can't say that because I haven't done the research.
Okay, that's fair.
So the other cool thing so ultimately this humic molecule gets so heavy because these different things are chemically bound to it, that it falls out of solution and precipitates out of solution, and it leaves the body through all the elimination channels. And that's really key, because most elimination and detox products require certain channels to be open. But the beautiful thing about humic, and it makes sense because it's a natural detoxification tool, it works on fields, there's a story from a scientist who worked in the big Russian nuclear accident?
Chernobyl.
Yeah, Chernobyl. And they were trying to get plants to grow. They gave a hectare of land to different scientists, and they said, see if you could get something to grow. And the only hectare that grew was the one they put humic on.
Wow.
They spread humic over it. So incredibly effective natural detoxification agent. It uses every elimination channel, including your tears, your snot, your sweat, your breath, your earwax, your just sloughing off cells. Which is great because it doesn't only rely on the liver process and urine and feces, kidney and bladder. So
which is helpful because not everybody's pooping every day. A lot of people get blocked up with toxicity because they're just not pooping every day.
And a lot of livers are really messed up as well.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So this is a really great thing. And, people often notice when they first start taking it that their sweat stinks, things like that. Like suddenly they have really stinky sweat, as an example. So the other thing that humic does, which is really cool, is it hangs out in the bloodstream and it interacts with the cell membranes. And what it does is it increases cell wall permeability. So I like to describe it like if you're in a room and you have a door and a window, if you had 4 doors and 4 windows and they were all open, more things could go in and out more efficiently. So it works to increase the efficiency of cell membranes by increasing the permeability of cells. And this is really important now when we have things like, seed oils, which can clog cell membranes and affect mitochondrial function because you're not getting enough nutrients into the cells, and it can affect just the efficiency of cells. So that's the humic molecule. So the other piece of the puzzle is fulvic. And so humic and fulvic are these synergistic molecules. Fulvic is a super, super, super micromolecule. It is much smaller than a cell. It carries with it 70 plus minerals in those natural ratios that your body needs. And it's one of the most effective flavonoids, meaning that it's an intercellular transporter, but it's unlike any other flavonoid because it has a capacity that no other molecule on Earth has, which is that it can change polarity.
Oh, cool.
So it gathers, and it's extremely high. It's a very strong electrolyte molecule. So these minerals and other nutritional elements cling to the molecule. Your body recognizes fulvic as a beneficial substance. So when it hits the cell wall and the channel opens, it doesn't require a gate. The body says, this is a beneficial substance, let's let it into the cell. So it goes through the cell membrane, and then it changes its polarity, and like a magnet, it drops its bolus of minerals and nutritional elements into the cell.
That's so cool.
Literally a
That's so cool.
delivery system. And it makes sense when you think about nature and cellular life on this planet. If mitochondria are in the cell and the minerals and nutritional elements have to get into the cell, you bet that Mother Nature would design some sort of enhanced process for getting those minerals and nutrients into the cell so that cellular life on the planet would thrive.
Yeah.
Because there's always been all sorts of non-beneficial environments for cells. So there had to be for cellular life. So there had to be this tool, both the cell wall permeability enhancement from the humic, and then the carrying of the full spectrum of minerals into the cell and the dropping them off. Now, the fulvic has a new role. It's dropped off its bolus of nutrients in the cell, and it's changed its polarity. Now it travels around in the cell, gathering up biowaste, toxins, heavy metals, nanoplastics, free radicals, glyphosate, all sorts of other viral detritus, et cetera. And now the channel opens in the cell wall, it carries those out. And this all happens through a scientific process called diffusion, which I'm sure you understand. So basically, the liquids inside your body wants things to be equally distributed. So it says the channel opens and it carries those biowaste and toxins, et cetera, out of the cell. And then it changes its polarity again, and it drops those things in the bloodstream, where now the humic molecule can gather them up and remove them entirely from your system. So this fulvic molecule, I mean, some of the people who are the people who know the most about it in the world, who I've talked to, they call it the God molecule, because when you start really studying how it even does its changing of polarity, you get into quantum mechanics. And it's extremely complex, and they really don't know how it does what it does.
And so it comes from humic, you said?
It is extracted from the humic molecule, yes.
So the humic is basically the peat and the debris of water plants and everything else that's decomposing.
Let's actually call it the result of decomposition.
Okay.
So it's actually, just so we're clear, it's actually like a set of microbes, a very specific set out of the hundreds of thousands of microbes that you might have in a cup of soil or more, probably millions, I don't know how many. But it's a very specific set of microbes that go through a process of, metabolizing one another and excreting and the metabolizing the excretion and et cetera. And they result in this humic molecule.
Got it. And then from that comes the fulvic.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
So why do so many, well, first of all, you have products that have both the humic and the fulvic separate. And I see fulvic a lot on different supplements that I've interacted with. Why one or the other?
Yeah.
I know you just explained the differences in how they work, but right. Just from my point of view as a consumer, like when I turn around a bottle and I see it says fulvic and not humic, what is why is it there?
So I liked it. And the reason I like to describe how they work is because it helps people to understand that you've got tools here.
Yeah.
You have a full system detoxifier with humic, and you have a nutrient uptake enhancer with fulvic.
Okay, I like that.
Now, it's definitely also doing intercellular detox. But so what I say is if you're an athlete, if you're a person who deals with struggling with energy in your life, the crash in the afternoon or just finding the energy, that fulvic is your first go-to. And the beautiful thing, one of the things actually, let's talk about humic for a moment. One of the things about humic is for people who have autoimmune. I'm one of these, by the way, who have autoimmune, who've had mold exposure, Lyme's. They have extremely sensitive immune systems that will have detox symptoms very, very easily. So humic, the only way that I can use humic is in my glass of water here. I drink like a 16-ounce glass of water with less than a half an ounce of humic, because otherwise I will start to get pimples or I'll get a rash. But the point is that these kinds of symptoms occur when those things are leaving your body. That's why a rash, because literally my body's saying, I'm going to bring it out, these toxins out through my skin. But you don't get any of those kinds of symptoms when you're having that intercellular detox that fulvic provides.
Yes.
So the beautiful thing is you can use fulvic, I have a whole thing about salt-based electrolytes that, we don't have to go into, but the point is that if you want to give yourself an immediate boost of electrolytes that happens in like 30 seconds, no digestion required, have a shot of fulvic liquid, because it doesn't require digestion or absorption through your gut lining. It absorbs through any tissue that it touches.
That's why we have this.
Which is why we have a spray.
This is what Natalie was spraying all over her face when her eyelids were healing. And I was so jealous and intrigued because I was like, why does she have no swelling? And why are my eyes this big? And she was just blasting the tissues with that. And she was like, no, I swear by this stuff. She's texting me and she's like, I swear it's the B minerals. They've kept everything just under control.
It's so true. So if you think about how it's working, you're spraying it on, and let's say you have an injury or you have had surgery or you are literally giving the cells in that local area all the mineral fuel for the mitochondria in that area, as well as the ability to get the toxins, those inflammation causing elements out of the cells. It's just ideal.
Yeah.
So, and this is what I say, Mother Nature is so wise. All we have to do is harness the tools that Mother Nature has created. And that's what humic and fulvic represent. The reason you'll see fulvic in so many supplements is because they're using it as a carrier molecule to increase the bioavailability of whatever element they're using, curcumin or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And they talk about it being charged a certain way.
It is, exactly.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
Now, the actual answer is people will say that, just so you know, the trick is people say, so what charge does a fulvic molecule have? Now, if you're really knowledgeable, you'll say it can either be positive or negative.
I was going to say, it depends, right?
And that's the only molecule on Earth that has that capacity.
Wow, okay, this makes so much sense. I'm just sitting here picking your brain for the audience.
Yeah, I love it.
There's no script here. I'm just nerding out and I'm like, I'm getting answers. Yeah, because Fulvic came on the scene a couple of years ago and it was all the rage and Shilajit and all of that. And I understand mechanistically what they do and what their purpose is, but I didn't understand it at this level. I'll be totally honest. And so I've been suspect because, marketing is so good around some of these things. And so you get caught up in it, but then you're like, what am I really taking? So tell me about something like, is zeolite, so I'm not trying to bring up competitors, but is zeolite a similar type of thing? Is that a fulvic or humic product?
Well, so the only thing about zeolite, and this is the interesting thing about humic, and I've been reading some studies recently about this. So zeolite is like, it's not discerning, you see. It will just, it's just a permeable substance that just gathers crap and carries it out. Okay. So it can also, take out things that are positive. Here's what I'm going to say about detox products in general. And I'm actually coming out with a book in the spring of next year, and I talk about this. But there are different ways to detox. There are, short-term intensive detox practices and protocols, which at times are absolutely necessary. If you are in a really deep need and you're working with a practitioner, this is a really important thing. As soon as you finish that protocol, you're again encountering environmental toxins. And so one of the best things to do is to use humic and fulvic as your natural tools for your bodily ecosystem to support everyday continuous detox.
That makes more sense. And it's a lot more elegant. The reason I ask is I had a few patients who were zealots about zeolite, but they were so depleted. They looked so depleted all the time, and they swore by this stuff. And, and everybody runs into the thing that changed their life and changed the course of their health, and they get excited about it. I understand. But they looked so depleted. And I was like, I don't know. I just could never get on the zeolite bandwagon with that one. I'm not a huge fan of big detoxes. That's why I was excited. When I got sent these, I was like, wait, I always thought of humic and fulvic as detox. Or binders. Like I said, I never considered them as I never considered fulvic as a mineral delivery system. So I was like, why is this called B minerals? That's why I got on the phone the call with you. Cause I was like, wait. What am I missing here? So this makes so much more sense. And you need a really robust mineral milieu when you're going through any kind of detox. Like it's the dance, right? And it's, talking to you sounds like talking to a naturopathic doctor because you get it. Like it's terrain-based care. Like you have to bolster up the terrain of the individual before you start doing things to it. It doesn't go well when you start slamming. That's why drives me nuts, these parasite people, these people on the internet with absolutely no health credentials who have tons of followers who are selling parasite cleanses. And I'm like, do you know what could go wrong when you start slamming people with even like hardcore mold detox or hardcore gut detox? Like you can herx people into, because once I was just talking to my podcast producer this morning about this, once you set off this certain toll-like receptor on the cell, this alarm system, all hell breaks loose. And it becomes a feed-forward mechanism. And so once you start lysing bugs in the gut and you start releasing lipopolysaccharides and endotoxins and you start the histamine blow, it's like the histamine blow, I call it. Like once those mast cells get primed, if you will, to just like you could touch somebody and they blow up, it starts to feed forward itself. So now the LPS is setting the system off, the histamine setting the system off. Now the hormones are involved, and it just becomes a complete shit show. And it can be very dangerous, and it can be really uncomfortable. And there's an elegant way to do this, and there's a really terrible, traumatizing way to do it. And I don't think people have a clue that there's a difference. And so I like this concept of this sort of slow and low, which, you know, it can be intense though. I emailed you and I was like, I have a rash all over my chest. And you were like, stop the humic, slow your roll, you know, because there's also the thing I like about it is it's liquid. I mean, I know you have the capsule version of the Fulvic, but you have these liquids, which is really beautiful because that you can slow the roll. Like you can microdose them into people and get people who are maybe very sensitive to a place where they're feeling a bit more stable, where you can start to get work done.
Exactly. You know, and so many people, you know, our medical system, including allopathic doctors, have been trained in a certain way of looking at the body. And I'm not saying there's never a time to look at the body that way when you have specific issues, but if we start to really go back and think about our body as an ecosystem, it begins to change the way we think about what we're putting in it. And so people are always, you know, one thing I love is our customer service people are amazing because they've really learned about the minerals. And so they can really talk in an educational way to people. And people constantly come and say, well, how much magnesium or how much potassium or how much whatever do you have in your minerals? And we're like, oh, wrong question.
Yes, right. Exactly. It's the quality of the question.
We used to say you are what you eat, but I say you are what you absorb. You are what you assimilate. So you may take a lot of, you know, single mineral, megadose minerals, and, you know, most of them are made with rocks from rock shells and bones. You know, then there's the salts they have other aspects or issues, but just the rock shells and bones, how well do you think your body digests those? Even though they're in powder form, they have to get down to such a tiny molecular level to be absorbed. But let's say some portion of it gets actually broken down enough to be absorbed. Now it's in your bloodstream, but how much actually gets into your cell? Do you know it is 7%? It's a very, very 7 to 10%. It's a very, very small amount. So what I say to people is if you're going to do nothing else for your health, if you just put humic and fulvic in your body, it is a great place to start. Now you're going to start getting more uptake of the nutrients from the foods you eat.
Yes,
from
and from the
supplements
you take. Yeah,
the supplements you take, and all of the other protocols as a practitioner that you're, you know, the reason we even have a practitioner program is because practitioners came to us and they said, we need you to have a practitioner program because we've gotten to the point where when our clients come to us with their multiple chronic symptoms that people now are presenting with, we just say, well, you need to start with the minerals first. Because if you start with the minerals first, then all the other protocols and practices and tools that the practitioner is using then take hold. The patient or the client ends up really gaining momentum, feeling better, which is, you know, very, very quickly.
Yes. Well, it's a subtle nudge too. And if we can get people, especially people who are either really sensitive or really sick, I don't think people realize how bad they feel. Truthfully,
yes.
You know, a lot of people feel really rotten, and I hear from my followers all the time. It breaks my heart. I made a post about histamine the other day, and it went crazy. I had no idea. I was like, whoa, what Pandora's box did I just open? Because the answer there is not simple. And so I just did a whole podcast episode, like the 101 version about histamine, and it is such a multi-complex. That's a tough one. I'm a histamine girl and I'm an autoimmune girl, and like trying to quiet down those systems is tough. And so having something that we can gently nudge the body with, like you said, in the right ratios, I think that matters so much.
And especially since COVID, haven't you seen a huge rise in histamine issues with your patients?
Oh my gosh. It's everybody. It's everywhere. Yeah.
It's everybody.
The
Yeah.
last 5 years have set off. Well, just go watch TV. I don't watch normal TV, but every time I'm in a hotel room or, if I just happen to have normal TV on, it trips me out. I'm so not used to it that my husband and I, we travel a lot for work, and we'll just have something on and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Every other commercial is for eczema or psoriasis. Every other one is for a pharmaceutical for eczema or psoriasis. And I'm like, when did everybody blow up with eczema and psoriasis? Oh, maybe in the last 5 years. Like something's going on, especially since the, mandatory intervention that so many people partook in. Like some immune systems are going sideways and very, very hyperactive. And that's just a shitty place to be. I've lived it my whole life. We didn't have the term MCAS back in the day. We just, I just had histamine issues. We didn't have POTS. I just had, I just fainted a lot. We didn't have any of the, we didn't have any of the fancy terms, but I had the syndromes. And so while I appreciate that there's terminology for it, what people really need to understand and what my listeners need to hear me say, if you're new to the show, if you're not new to the show, I think you get this. There is no one answer. There's no one simple solution. There's a multitude of tools, and not all of them are tolerated by everybody. And so I do individualized medicine. This is why I couldn't answer people when I was trying to talk about GLP-1s, because GLP-1s act as mast cell stabilizers in a way, and they do really incredible things on the immune system. And then everybody's like, what's the dose? What's the dose, right? And there's never any one answer for everybody. It's like, it depends on who's sitting in front of me and what is going on. Like what I don't treat conditions, I treat people, right? So
each ecosystem is different.
Yeah, exactly. And an example is a couple of years ago, I moved into this house out in the country with my husband. He's lived on this land his whole life, 51 years.
Wow.
When I moved here that summer, I moved here right when we got hit quarantine with COVID. And that summer, this huge crop of red clover came up. And it was like, it was so beautiful, and it was waist high, and there were bees everywhere. And when I was a kid, I was a really sick little kid, and I used to have a lot of medical interventions done on me. And I used to cry and cry and cry. And my mom would always be like, go to your happy place, while they were poking and prodding me with needles, And my happy place was a field of daisies, like waist high daisies. And I remember the first time I walked through this clover, and it was waist high, and there were bees everywhere. And normally I'm terrified of bees, but they were all super chill because they were doped out on the clover. So I'm like, what in the? And I remember thinking, like, this is what I've had in my mind my whole life. When I go to my happy place, it's like this moment right here. It was like out of a movie. And then that next year, they tilled the field because I guess they use the crop to, whatever they do to the soil, and then so they tilled it out to plant grass. And oh my God, that tilling, they tilled it so fine that it was like powder. And then this huge field behind me, which doesn't belong to us, it's like an ocean. You can't even see to the other side. It's so big. They tilled that field. And then they had to water the crap out of all the fields, massive watering. All this sediment was running off. Our land got changed shape just because of the field behind us and how much topsoil they lost. Their crop grew. Our crops didn't grow. So, and I told, I'm kind of, I'm pretty clairvoyant. And I remember walking through the soil, and I started crying when they first tilled it, and I started crying, and I was like, you killed the soil. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, you guys killed the soil. You killed the lungs of the soil. It's not going to grow. And he got so mad at me. He was like, you don't know if it's going to grow. You're not a farmer. I'm like, dude, nothing's growing in this. And so they had to fertilize it and then replant it. And it finally grew grass. It was beautiful grass, and it was whatever. Then I find out it's for grass seed. Like, I live in the Willamette Valley, where we're the #1 grass seed producers in the world, and literally fields and crops of grass being grown for seed for golf courses.
It's beautiful when you drive by it.
But what a waste of, I'm sorry. I don't want to like shit on anybody's work, the work that they do for a living. But like, to me, I just, as an outsider, I'm like, this is a monumentally weird phenomenon. But anyway, my long story, that season, because I'm a biologist, that season, the whole ecosystem changed around here. The year that we were trying to get this grass to grow after we took the clover out, we had stinging bugs of all varieties, and they were pissed. They were super aggressive. The honeybees kept stinging me. I've never been stung in my life. And here I am getting like I got 4 stings that summer. The wasps and yellow jackets were pissed and aggressive. The whole bug ecosystem changed. The mosquitoes went nuts. That end of that summer was like the worst. The blackberries, that year when I first moved here, the blackberries were lush and beautiful. They've never recovered. Every year since, they've been tiny and hard and not sweet and not really that very good, which I'm sure is impacting the deer and all the other things that live out in the forest behind my house. We're losing deer. We have more coyote than we've ever had. Like, I'm not saying it's all related to that one thing, but like everything changed after that and the entire ecosystem shifted. And I'm just sitting there as like a naturopathic biologist going, dude, you guys F this up. you wreck the ecosystem. And this is just a good example of what we do to our bodies when we start blasting. We go in, and as my mentor, my naturopathic mentor would say, it's like trying to, take out flies with a shotgun when you have a fly swatter. Like, what are you doing? And I think of I do use the salt electrolytes and I do use high dose magnesium, but I'm not like an all the time girl with them. And I definitely, I also take trace minerals every day, so I've been using your product now for months and absolutely love it. I spray this stuff. I have the big bottle and I get out of the shower every night and like douse myself in it before I put my body lotion on. And then this sits on my desk. So this one, you guys have several, scents. Like you have one that has lavender that lives by my bed, and this is bergamot and it sits on my desk, and they are amazing. I think the topicals are my favorite, honestly.
They really are. They're phenomenal. They're phenomenal.
Yeah, let's talk about them. Why are these so good? I know that you said that absorption's very easy with the Fulvic, but
so the Instalites, which is the one that has no scent at all, is just allowing you to put minerals a full spectrum of minerals wherever you need it. So people use it, like I have runners who use it and when they're running like a marathon, and they spray and breathe it in for a very quick, instant electrolyte replenishment. I spray it, I blow dry my hair with it. I spray it on my face when I'm doing my facial things. If I have a sore muscle of any type, whether it's a tension headache or a sore muscle from working out, I spray it on. Just spray it on. It works incredibly well for menstrual cramps. If women have menstrual cramps, and by the way, cramping is mineral deficiency. So we have so many women who have stopped having their painful periods from just taking B minerals for 2 to 4 months. So and same with leg cramps. If you have night cramps at night, that is a sign that your body's mineral deficient. So yes, you could wait until you get the cramp and spray the spray on, but even better, spray it on before you go to bed, and then you won't get the cramp, because all of those minerals will be already absorbed through the skin into the muscle in 5 seconds. It takes a very short period of time. So then we have, the bergamot one. So bergamot, for most people, when you smell bergamot, it actually triggers the release of endorphins. So it can change your neurotransmitter wash in your body. So if you think of a mood, like when you're happy or when you're feeling anxious or panicky or depressed, these are neurotransmitter washes in your body. So you can shift that in like 5 to 7 seconds just by spraying and breathing that in. For people Happy Lights, which is the bergamot product, is our third favorite product. It is beloved by people. We had a sale the other day, and people were buying like 10 and 12 bottles of our
This is the stuff, you guys. This is on my desk because if I catch myself going into the spiral for whatever reason, or I feel my cortisol elevate, I just start dousing. Yeah,
yes,
I just start. It's like I'm trying to ward off evil spirits.
Right, exactly.
I just start going. I spray my dogs. Like it's all. This is my sage.
Teenagers also love it. Like, don't spray it at them. You just spray it around them. Even angry husbands. But again, you just spray it when you're around them, and then they're like, "Hey, what's that?"
That's
and
nice.
They end up with it. So,
what's your second favorite product?
Well, the second one I love is Boo Boo Light. So Boo Boo Lights it has kind of a lavenderish. It's a mix of of essential oils, but it's incredibly effective at removing the itching or burning of burns, bug bites, bee stings, also many skin rashes, hives. Incredibly effective.
I get devoured by the mosquitoes, and I have it sitting next to my, I usually use lavender oil for mosquitoes, but I have it sitting next to my mosquito bottle of oils. So I will start doing
Yeah,
both because that is,
yeah,
I use it
definitely.
at night. Like I spray the pillow. I spray the husband, everybody gets it's like my nighttime, dousing of
That's great.
everything.
And lavender is very calming, so it's also good in that way.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then we have Respiralights, and so Respiralights is for those seasonal allergies. It's got, again, a blend of essential oils that is kind of in the eucalyptus range. So it really helps open the airways, and also because that fulvic is doing, when you're breathing it in, it's also doing the inflammation removal or remediation, I should say. So it's incredibly helpful. Actually, recently we have some people who've been using it on hand. They doing a lot of work with their hands, and they've been spraying it on their hands and finding it incredibly helpful. So I want to do some research on the essential oils in there, which are there's some interesting ones, and see how they are for like tendons, and because I feel like the issues they're having are kind of tendonitis types of things. So I'm going to check into that. Um, those are really, we don't have a lot of products. We have our electrolyze, which is our fulvic ingestible. We have our microboost, which is the humic ingestible. And then we have our capsules, which we really recommend for travel, or if you are an elite athlete, they are also used for athletics, in addition to the liquid.
I think that those are so great. The pills, because I was using the liquid. I forgot you'd sent me the capsules, and I was using the liquid a lot, and then I forget because we go traveling, and then I get off of it. And then one day I found the bottle, and I was like, oh geez, I should just take these with me and stay on it, because the fulvic, I think, has been a big game changer for me. I've been a little leery of the humic just because I probably just need to come back in gingerly, because I was having some thyroid issues. And so I had messaged you about that. And I didn't want to set off my autoimmune thyroid even further. So I was like, you were like, pull back on the humic for now. And
Did I send you the slow introduction method?
I don't know. I'll look, but that would be great.
Yeah, I'll send you the slow introduction method. And it is, if you scan the QR code on the back of the bottle, it will take you to the product detail, kind of the product usage. And there is a slow introduction method written in there. And it's, since we had COVID, just as an example, before COVID, we maybe had one person every 6 months who might contact us and go, hey, I think I might be having a detox response. Since COVID, we get 5 a week.
Wow. So everybody's immune systems are fired up.
It's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's wild. It's really crazy what's going on. And I have friends whose entire clinics have now completely transitioned to dealing with long COVID and outcomes from COVID and from the intervention, because there's just a lot going on. There's a lot happening. You guys have some cool bundles too, though. So you can get the fulvic and the humic together, the electrolyze and the microboost, and then you can get some sprays. Like, you guys have some cool bundles by category.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of times, we're not a company that has lots of products. Instead, what we've done is created bundles of the existing products that, what I say is, there are different conversations. If you're a woman in menopause, it's going to be a completely different conversation than if you're a woman who's pregnant, or if you're a woman or if you're a guy who, 60-year-old athlete, or you're a 24-year-old athlete. There are different conversations. And so we've created kind of sets of products that are focused for things. We have a cramp relief kit with 100% guarantee that if you use that kit, your cramps will be either so greatly reduced that you're good, or else completely gone. Otherwise, we will give you your money back. So we've kind of put things together for people to understand how to use.
Yeah. Well, once you explained it to me, it made so much more sense because I got this beautiful care package from you guys and I didn't know what to do. So, and your website is very helpful. Actually, once I got in there and there's a tab at the top that says learn and it takes you into blogs and podcasts and you guys explain it really well in there. So I love it. I'm a big fan. That's why I brought you on. I think that the way you have explained this is so helpful to those who are using Fulvic anyway. So, I mean, regardless of what they're using, but I would love to talk about sourcing a little bit because I feel like people are going to ask about that. Like, where does it come from? And is it clean? And are we worried about heavy metals? And those are the things that my followers want to know.
So I'm so glad you asked that. First of all, our products are sourced in the our base material, the humic, is sourced from the Southwest United States. It is taken from the earth. It's about 10 to 12 feet below the surface of the earth. It's immediately bagged and brought into this facility. So it doesn't have any contact with acid rain or anything. It's in an extremely remote area, completely away from any kind of, where you might have effluent or anything from manufacturing or from cities or from cars or anything. Okay. So incredibly pure and clean. Now let's talk about heavy metals because this is very important. And recently we did have somebody post about heavy metals in our products. And in my book, I've written a whole section to help people understand this. Here's the interesting thing. Because humic comes from the earth, if you pick up if you dug down 10 feet and took some earth out of the soil, out of the earth, there would be heavy metals in it. Okay. So, and because this is the result of all these trees and plants decomposing, it does have heavy metals in it. Now, here's what I want people to understand. This is why humic and fulvic are being studied around the earth. The heavy metals that are associated with the humic and fulvic molecules, the term that we use is they have no valence. What that means is they have no ability to come free from the molecule. This is the interesting thing. So when that fulvic carries in the nutrients into the cell, the beneficial minerals are delivered, the nutrients are delivered, the heavy metals stay associated with the molecule. This is why literally these molecules are being studied around the earth. About probably 6 years ago now, a world-renowned heavy metal detoxification doctor called us. And I was a little nervous when she called. We were much younger as a company, and I was like, okay. I was like, oh, hello, let me talk to you. And she said, I want you to know that I have tried so many different agents and products and tools to remove heavy metals from my patients. And your products, particularly our MicroBoost product, is the only product that has moved the dial on lead toxicity and mercury toxicity in my clients.
Wow. And this is the humic product, right?
And this is the humic product, right?
Okay.
So what we have to understand is that, and I've written a whole thing to help people understand heavy metals. So heavy metals are a problem in your system when they are free roaming and they are just floating around loose in your system. As part of the humic molecule, when they are associated with the humic molecule, they have no negative effects in your system. And I know it's hard for people to understand. I tried, the woman who posted about us, I tried to engage her in a conversation. I've engaged people in the past who've also done this kind of thing and helped them to understand the science behind humic and fulvic. And I'm not going to do it here, but I talk down to the deep scientific level with them so they can truly understand it and send them the scientific studies. The fact is that humic is incredibly effective at lowering lead toxicity.
I
So
I believe that. And I have chelated many people for heavy metals. And it is, again, a process of being very gentle and very careful, because I shared this on my last podcast. I was chelated too fast, too hard, intravenously and orally. And I ended up, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it just set off a histamine hellstorm, or my theory was that because your heavy metals that you do have, that you've accumulated, bioaccumulated, are in your fat cells. And so I don't know if I just released them from the fat stores and they got stuck in my skin, but I ended up with hives for 9 months, Caroline, 9 months of itching and like welts. And it drove me insane. Like I wanted to end my life at one point. I was so itchy. Like you can't itch that bad for 9 months and not go crazy. And when it was all over, I was like, oh, there is a gentle way to do things. And this was not it. So
that itching thing. I had an autoimmune skin problem as a kid. And it returned. It had a 7-year cycle every 7 years, and it would cover my whole body with itching welts. It's terrible.
It's the worst. And so I started to then clinically chelate my patients orally, much more gently, much more slowly, much more carefully. And this makes complete sense. And I do know people who are using humic for heavy metal detox. And the other thing I'll say to the people who are throwing you shade, every single week I wake up and there's heavy metals in something. And what people don't understand is that like, oh, there's heavy metals in your hemp. There's heavy metals in your pea protein. There's heavy metals in the chocolate. These are bioaccumulator plants. They are literally on the earth to pull shit out of the soil. That's what they do. So all of these things, there is heavy metals naturally occurring in the soil. It's not just because somebody contaminated the soil. And then there's going to be heavy metals in the plant life that grew there, because if they're a bioaccumulator, that's what they're going to do. And then we're bioaccumulators and so on. And so the issue is are you living a life of adequate detoxification, sweating, movements, good phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox, because you're getting enough protein and you're getting enough nutrients. Like it's all a dance. It's not oh my gosh, there's a little bit of, the mineral waters are what got me. Do you remember when everybody went crazy a few years ago because there was heavy metals in certain brands of bubbly water, of mineral water? It's like, yeah, because it's a mineral water. Like, people don't get it. That's what minerals are. I mean, they're not mercury, and they're not all heavy metals, but like these are rocks that exist in nature that have been pulverized and broken down. And so anyway, all that to say is we're going to continue to find heavy metals and things that come from the earth, period.
And, one of the other things that I learned about heavy metals, it's also really interesting, is you could have something like arsenic, and there are inorganic heavy metals and there are organic heavy metals.
Yes.
Organic heavy metals are associated with carbon molecules. Inorganic arsenic comes from manufacturing. It's extremely, toxic.
Yes.
Organic arsenic, really not toxic.
Yes, it's the form.
So when you look at something like a humic molecule, that's an organic arsenic that might show up in there at a very, very small parts per million, you see? So we have a lot more to learn. And I understand, we have these things, we raise the flag, oh my gosh, heavy metals. But now we get to learn more. And that's part of what I'm trying to do is bring knowledge about minerals and how they work in the body. And the body is an ecosystem, and you can't just throw things in there and expect your ecosystem to be in balance, and on and on.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and the way to get rid of heavy metals elegantly in a patient is to make sure they have tons of minerals in their body. Like we have to get their mineral situation handled first, and then we can start talking about chelating them. Because when you chelate somebody or you start pulling heavy metals out, you pull necessary minerals out with it. So it's a dance. Again, nothing is so simple. And if we're talking about like ancient plots of ancient decomposed earth dirt, it's not like there was a factory over that dumping arsenic into it. It's not, this is a different beast is what you're saying. And I completely agree with you. It's like mercury, I used to avoid, I still do because I don't love the taste, but like shellfish, I used to be terrified of shellfish and seafood because I was like, oh, they're full of mercury. Yes, but they have like self-correcting enzymes in their bodies to turn it into a form of mercury that isn't super poisonous to us. So it's like nature finds a way. And I don't know if that makes people feel better, but fair warning, we're going to keep seeing these reports coming out each week that there's arsenic or heavy metals or mercury in all of our favorite things, because if they came from the earth, you can bet there's going to be some heavy metals in them. I know people are going to ask dosing, and we can't give dosing, but I'm a big fan of slow and low. And I think that the way that you've shared with me for my own health journey was slow and low on the humic, like you mentioned, with the diluting it in a big glass of water, because I was doing shots of it when I first got it.
I told you that, yeah.
It comes in these great big bottles with this cool cap, and I was like, shots. So
we're actually about to, we're just getting it printed now, a new welcome kind of booklet that people can read through and really understand more, which I think is going to be really helpful that way. Just, we never use the word dose.
Yes.
Because I just say recommended amount. And the reason is, if you have a megadose mineral, you have to have a dosage because you're creating a concentration in the body, and you can get too much. If you take too much magnesium, it'll give you diarrhea, as an example. So, but when you're dealing with trace minerals like this, you don't have to really worry about getting too much over a long period of time. Particularly with a humic, you can have, the detox response, which is why you want to be able to go slow and low. And introduce. But the main thing that I want people to understand is, if you think about your body as an ecosystem, I don't care if whatever supplement you take, you probably don't want to start just throwing them down. Maybe take a little bit and see how it feels.
Yeah.
Because if you're treating yourself gently as an ecosystem, you might change lots of practices.
Yes. It seems like the Fulvic, though, is pretty safe to just sort of have at it. If you feel like you're loving, I'm a big fan of using your intuition. So if you're feeling like you want to spray the heck out of yourself with it, or you're using the oral liquid or the capsules, like that one has been at least for me, it's been very well tolerated. I just know people are going to ask me and ask you. So I'm just trying to give examples here. I'm never talking prevention, treatment, or cure. This is all for educational purposes. I'm just sharing my own personal experience. But the humic, I definitely realized that I got to slow my roll on that and be a little more careful and kind of gingerly tiptoe into it, like you've already talked about. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I was thinking of anything and everything that we want to make sure we cover, because I know the questions we'll get and I want to address them head on.
Just, the capsules are humic.
Okay.
So they're actually the humate material.
Oh, are they?
They are actually the base material. Now, the thing the reason you probably didn't herx when you use them is because you'd already been taking the other products, and they have a much lower bioavailability because they have to be digested. I kind of think of them as a slow introduction method in their own right, because they slowly digest and break down in your system. So, but I wouldn't recommend somebody who has a sensitive system to ever start with the capsules. It would be always best to start with the Fulvic, maybe 10 days with Fulvic, then start introducing the humic, the microboost, slowly over time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good information to have, because the liquid seems like it's going to be quite absorbable versus a capsule, like you just said. So that's good information to have. Okay. Well, I think we covered it all, my lady.
We did great. Thank you so much. I'm truly on a mission to help people understand this stuff, because, years ago, nobody ever heard the word microbiome or, knew what a probiotic was. And somebody had to bring that information to the front for, and that's what that's my job.
That's your mission. I love it. No, it's always so fun to talk to you, because I learn a ton, and even hearing you repeat it just cements it in my brain. So I really enjoy it. And I thank you for taking the time today. You guys have been generous enough to offer my listeners a discount, and you guys can find that at beamminerals.com. And the coupon code is Dr. Tyna, DRTYNA, and that'll get you a really nice discount. I highly encourage you to try, at the very least, start with the sprays. It's a very gentle way to ease in, and I love them. I truly love them. I've sort of replaced my obsession with essential oils with these instead, because I get the hit, I get my essential oil hit, and I get my Fulvic, it's just really refreshing. I use it to set my makeup. I know you're saying you put it in your hair when you blow dry. Like I set my makeup with it, or I do it in between layers of skincare just as a little sprucer upper, and I feel better. It kind of gives you just like a lighter feeling. It's a refresher, if you will. So.
Absolutely. It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I will make sure that all the links are in the show notes. People know where to find you. People know where to find the information. And thank you again so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you as always.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Tyna Show. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and mixed by Mike Fry. Theme song is by John the Guilt. You can watch the full video version of this podcast inside the Spotify app or on YouTube. As always, you can email the podcast at podcast@drtyna.com. That's DRTYNA. And if you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find all of my offerings on my website at drtyna.com. For more shows by my team, go to wellnessloud.com. See you next time, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practices of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is intended not to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.